Mariah Carey has been accused of sexual harassment by her former security guard. Now, Michael Anello, who is the CEO of Los Angeles-based Anello Security and Consulting, is actually threatening to sue Carey for unpaid bills in excess of $220,000 for work undertaken between June 2015 and May 2017. Further, a draft lawsuit that was obtained by TMZ, prepared by Anello's lawyer, alleges sexual and verbal harassment, including calling him a skinhead, among other slurs. He alleges on one occasion she was wearing a sheer negligee, and Anello said that he tried to excuse himself, but Carey insisted that he moved the luggage that he was moving at the time in her room, and then he left the room. So obviously these are all allegations that are happening right now, and I think in the midst of all of the Harvey Weinstein sort of fallout and all of these other famous people in Hollywood being, sort of brought down by sexual harassment and sexual abuse claims and allegations, this is adding to the list with a little bit of a twist, right? Oftentimes, in a lot of these cases, we've seen women accusing men of these actions, and now this sort of flips the table. What do you guys think about this?
If you go ahead.
Go for it. I feel like I jump in like immediately.
No, go ahead.
I just, if you're sexually harassing people, I think the accusation should come forward and we should investigate it and find out who it is, regardless of the gender of the person who's, perpetrating allegedly this sexual harassment.
Yeah, I think some of the claims are gonna need to be a little bit more specific. Mariah Carey is always in a negligee. I've never not.
That was he watched her music video.
Yeah, I've never not seen her almost naked. So it's probably also the laziest sexual harassment that based on her performances. It's gotta be really bad. But yeah, again, harassment of any form has to be taken seriously. Folks need to come forward. He needs to file this so it can be further investigated.
Yes, I agree with you guys, right? Like, it's very important to recognize that sexual harassment and sexual abuse happens to men too. And I think that is an important sort of nuance to a lot of the allegations that we're seeing in the media right now. That said, there's a lot going on here. He's unpaid, he is saying that she's racist. One of the things that he said was that she was racist because she wanted to be surrounded by black guys and not white people. First of all, reverse racism, not a thing, okay? So that's like the first thing, not a thing.
I never understand that. I don't understand what that means. Like, what does reverse racism, not a thing, mean?
Yeah, so when you were talking about like an ism, right? Okay, so like sexism, racism, whatever it is, you're looking at, and you can do a better job at this because you're a sociologist, but you're often looking at like the oppressor and oppressed. Historically, you're looking at historical context and things like that. And so when you look at that dynamic and the systemic problems, right? There's gonna be individual biases and stereotypes and things like that, but when you're looking at it on a systemic level, you can't, like, the oppressed can't be racist or sexist against the oppressor.
But what if she's like, I hate white people because they're just inherently inferior to me, so I don't want them around me.
Right, like I said, there can be sort of like an individual that can feel that way, but it's not like the whole racism because it's not a systemic problem.
I get what you're saying. I think those words, yeah, I get it. You have to take into consideration the historical legacy of oppression systems that have been happening since slavery, but it's like, if she's being racist toward white people, like, she can be racist toward white people, right? I can be, I as a Jew can be racist toward people who have oppressed me in the past.
Yeah, I think it's just the way we're using these terms.
Yeah.
And I think that's we get caught up in how we, kind of semantics around these things. She's displaying bigoted behavior. She's saying things that are racist. She may be discriminating in this particular case because it is the workplace.
Right.
Which I think gets problematic because you should exert some kind of control over who is hired. If you do have that issue, then why is it on display in these kind of interpersonal interactions when he's an assistant, a bodyguard?
Bodyguard, yes.
Right. Okay, yeah. Then you exert some control over who is being being hired. Not to say that she's not just openly discriminating by not actively hiring white people. I don't know, and I feel like her ethnicity is also kind of ambiguous, so this is all just kind of like an interesting case. In any light, I think all forms of discrimination or harassment need to be investigated and taken seriously. It's just a little nebulous here as to kind of what has happened, and I think that's why it's just a little tricky to kind of suss out.
Right, and in any crime, it seems like there's an act and an intent. There's a way that you could be in a room with Mariah Carey and she's in revealing outfits, and it's the the stage at the Grammys. And there's one where she is in a revealing outfit and she is intentionally making you feel awkward and powerless when she's making you come in and take her luggage away, when you obviously have said that this makes you feel uncomfortable and it's not part of your job and it shouldn't be part of your job.
Right. No, and I agree with you. And there's other allegations that I read from different sources, one of which saying that she was partaking in sexual activity with somebody and he felt like she was making sure that he witnessed it.
Yeah, that's creepy.
Well, I mean, you're also a security guard. And if you're standing outside of a room or standing outside of somewhere to protect somebody, I don't know where the lines are. I don't know. Like I don't know what happened, right? Because this is all just sort of coming out right now, and so I think there's a lot that we still need to look into. That said, I think this is an important story because sexual harassment obviously can happen to men too, as we've seen in the Kevin Spacey allegations, and now potentially in the Mariah Carey allegation.
And I think it's interesting because it's another case, although not as clear as how do you maintain professionalism in these informal professional spaces? And I think we've got to start to figure out how to carve out boundaries that are clear, because this isn't a formal office space, right? This is your security guards, so they do kind of traverse the boundaries of kind of interpersonal interactions, right? They are there when you're changing or possibly sleeping with someone. So then, how do you define what harassment is?
It sounds like there's I guess it probably happens in Game of Thrones, but I remember there was a show called Rome where like she's having sex and all her guards are standing around in a circle. That's what it seems like, this archaic, terrifying, like medieval situation. I will say that I am glad that Hollywood is changing. I was an assistant at a talent agency and I always worked for really great people, but you'd be on the phone like, you just are listening into everyone's conversations in case you need to send a package or something. And then you see it, you hear it, just like terrifying things happen on the phone. And you hear stories from other assistants working at other places. And I talked to various people throughout the industry and they've said that times have changed. They know that this is happening and HR departments exist now, whereas before it was just like the person who signed your check and there wasn't a real fully developed HR department you could go to. And I heard of one story where it wasn't like, in my day, you'd hear these things about like, what are you wearing? Kind of texts going to assistants and whatnot and saying really untoward, horrible things. And then I heard one story about someone who just sent one text that was more about like, where are you right now? Which could be a bunch of things, but it was after hours. And as an assistant after hours, you'd always get called to go make a delivery at like 8:30 p.m. on a, essentially like a Friday night. You just had to do it because that was part of your job. But the ambiguity there, they were both brought in and asked to hash it out and establish those boundaries, which is a very responsible step that just, I don't remember exactly happening 15 years ago.
And I think that's really important to kind of piggyback off what you're saying and to address what you said, Ambria, is I do think that it's really important to really define what sexual harassment is, what sexual abuse is, and sexual assault and all of those things, because even though we shouldn't have to, like we should know what this looks like, I think right now it does seem like a little bit nebulous and we don't know how to do it in sort of different scenarios when it's the interpersonal and you have business sort of mixing, or you're doing late night deliveries and you don't know how to interpret text or whatever it may be. There is a lot, I think there's a lot of confusion. And even though maybe there shouldn't be, I still think that it exists. And so let's define it. You know what I mean? Break it down to like, this is every little thing right here is considered sexual harassment. This is sexual assault. This is sexual abuse. Like, I think we really, really need to be very, very specific so that people, I don't think anybody except for some of the biggest offenders. I think people like if there's more like seemingly innocuous offenders, I think nobody really wants to be creepy or nobody wants to be harassing and things like.
I don't know.
I think there's some people out there, but I think for like your everyday, sort of wink at the woman and things like that, I think if you are made clear, hey, that's sexual harassment, then maybe fewer people would do it.
Yeah.
I think. I hope.
I had the same like reaction. Like, yeah, I hear that and I want to believe it so badly, but I think that entertainment is a specific kind of industry that you get into for the power and the coolness of it that a lot of people are drawn to for those reasons. There's all the pure artists and the producers who are really in it to make amazing art, but there are also people that are there just to go to parties and get drunk and get chicks. Like that instinct is still out there, and
I think that exists in so. I mean that starts in fraternities. I mean that
it's
like,
very fratty.
Yeah. This is a pervasive issue because it's not. I mean, there's many workplaces that are under fire now because the cocktail party got too out of control and your boss came up and said something inappropriate, right? And that's just par for the course. It's like. And to your point, different people have different definitions of what they think sexual harassment or assault is, or they even base it on the kind of relationship that they think they have with their coworker, right? They're like, we're cool, so I'm gonna say something wildly inappropriate because that's Hannah. And it's like, actually, we still work together. There should be some boundaries. So it is a dicey issue. I think particularly things may change a little more in media because of the stigma around kind of being outed, right? Like. I think that doesn't happen so much with like regular workplaces. Like no one's wondering what FedEx is doing, but like, some of these corporations or public figures were like, oh, you're harassing people? I'm not gonna watch House of Cards.
I mean, having a platform makes a huge deal.
Similar to that, I talked to a producer who's been in the town for probably 30 years. And he said that he thinks it's because the insurance companies are like, we're not gonna pay these settlements anymore. Like,
it's all about profit.
People are getting better at it. The people who you've been able to scare into submission for so long are not as frightened anymore. They're going to tell on you and they're going to have a good case because everything, whereas before it was a phone call that they made, now it's a text message and an email that they can print out and show in court. And he's just like, yeah, for whatever reason, actually gets it to happen, even if it is the insurance company, it's a good thing that this is happening.
Yeah, because not everybody has integrity.
If you like this clip of the Young Turks, there's a whole live 2-hour show, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern every day, and you can download it or stream it and watch it without ads if you become a member. TYTnetwork.com/join.